Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron, and we're back here today with another edition of Budget Magic. So this week, we are heading to Modern once again for a deck I am really excited about. We get to play a ton of fun cards, do some really cool things. We are playing a Death Cloud deck. As you can see, $87 in the paper world, 36 ticks online, so a pretty good deal for what I think is a pretty competitive deck in Modern. Anyway, let's talk about it. First off, the namesake card, Death Cloud. So X in 3 black for a sorcery says each player loses X life, discards X cards, sacrifices X creatures, and then sacrifices X lands. So obviously Death Cloud has a huge impact on the game. Most of the time, if you can cast it for enough mana, the end result of Death Cloud is everything is gone. Lands are gone, creatures are gone, and hands are gone, and both players lose a bit of life as well. So the trick of Death Cloud is building the deck in such a way that we can take advantage of the fact that the board is mostly wiped and hands are empty, but our opponent, because they're not expecting to play against Death Cloud, probably can't. We'll talk about how we do this as we go through the rest of the slides. We also have 4 Smallpox, which is kind of a miniature version of Death Cloud. Actually, it's literally a smaller version of Pox, a card from Ice Age. But it's 2 black mana for a sorcery, says each player loses 1 life, discards a card, sacrifices a creature, and sacrifices a land. Smallpox can be very devastating, especially when we're on the play. We play land, our opponent plays a land into a Birds of Paradise or Noble Hierarch. We can untap, play a land, Smallpox. Our opponent loses their birds and their land and discards a card. We lose a land, so we can come out ahead in that exchange, so it does some really cool things. Finally, we have 2 Haunting Echoes. Haunting Echoes is kind of our finisher. It works really well with both Death Cloud and Smallpox. Haunting Echoes, 5 mana, 2 of it black, sorcery. Exile all cards from target player's graveyard other than basic lands. For each card exiled this way, search that player's library for all cards with the same name and exile them as well. Then that player shuffles his or her library. So with Haunting Echoes, everything in the graveyard, we get to exile every copy of that in our opponent's deck. So if we can resolve Haunting Echoes after we've resolved a Death Cloud or even a Smallpox, which fills up the graveyard with everything on the battlefield, everything in our opponent's hands, we can usually exile almost every relevant card from our opponent's deck. Which makes it really hard for them to win the game. Plus, it randomly lets us hose things like Living End or Dredge, who just can't beat a resolved Haunting Echoes. So it randomly hoses graveyard decks and is a really great follow-up to Death Cloud and Smallpox. So how do we break the symmetry of Death Cloud? Well, first, the easiest way, the most obvious way, is to ramp. So if we can have more lands on the battlefield than our opponent, and more mana sources than our opponent, when we cast a Death Cloud, our opponent loses all their creatures and all their lands. We end up with some lands left over on the battlefield, which allows us to rebuild faster than our opponent. So we have 4 Secure Tribe Elder, 1 in a green for a 1/1, basically a rampant growth on a body. Sacrifice Secure Tribe Elder, search your library for a basic land, put that card into play tap, shuffle your library. Then we have 2 Golgari Signet, 2 mana artifact, pay 1, tap it, add a black and a green. But it's sweet because Death Cloud, while it hits a lot of things, it doesn't hit artifacts, so it's a mana source that sticks around on the battlefield even through a Death Cloud. 4 Search for Tomorrows. This one's another sweet one. So it's a 3 mana rampant growth, but you can suspend it for 2 turns on turn 1. So it gives us a turn 1 play, which our deck is really lacking. And it also helps us ramp into lands to break the symmetry of Death Cloud. And as we go through the rest of the deck, you'll see 4 and 5 mana are the sweet spots in our deck. So Search for Tomorrows allows us to cast our 4 and 5 drops a turn early, which is what we want to be doing. Then we also have a single copy of Solemn Simulacrum, 4 mana for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, we get to Rampant Growth, search for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped. When it dies, we get to draw a card. That's the benefit of both Solemn and Secure Tribe Elder. Not only do they Rampant Growth for us, but we get a free chump block to help stall out the game while we're building up our mana base to cast this huge Death Cloud. Then we have a couple more creatures, 2 Eternal Witnesses, pretty much just a value card. Sometimes it can be very good with Smallpox. We can cast a Smallpox, use Eternal Witness to get back the land that we sacrificed, but our deck is built around is destroying everything, putting everything in the graveyard, so we can always find some good target for Eternal Witness. And then the key creature of the deck is Thragtusk. Thragtusk is another way we can break the symmetry of Death Cloud. So 5 mana for a 5/3. When it enters the battlefield, we gain 5 life. So it's already a pretty sweet card. It trades with any of the heavily played Eldrazi bigger than most things in the format, and it helps us stabilize a bit because of the gaining 5 life. When you ramp into it on turn 3 or turn 4, it's very good against aggro as well. But the key piece is when it leaves the battlefield, you put a 3/3 green beast token on the battlefield, so we can resolve a Thragtusk, gain the life, kind of stabilize, and then when we Death Cloud, it leaves behind a 3/3 token, so not only will we have more lands in our opponent, so we can keep casting new things faster, but we have a creature left behind on the battlefield as well that allows us to keep beating down right away while our opponent has nothing going on, so we can close out the game. Another creature, it's not in this deck because it was a little out of budget, but Kitchen Finks is another good one that does the same thing thanks to Persist. Then, of course, we also have a couple Planeswalkers. So Planeswalkers, like artifacts, are one of the card types that doesn't get hit by Death Cloud. So we can cast Planeswalkers, have them on the battlefield, Death Cloud, and they stay behind to keep generating advantage after everything else is gone. Garruk Wildspeaker is probably the best one because not only is it a Planeswalker that sticks around and eventually will create a bunch of 3/3 beasts or overrun them to win us the game, but it untaps 2 lands as its +1. So if we play a Garruk on turn 3 or turn 4, the next turn use it to untap our lands and then use those lands to cast a huge Death Cloud. Everything gets wiped out, but we have a Garruk left behind to take over the game. Liliana Vess, kind of the same thing. It doesn't help us ramp, but it's a way, because of its -2 ability, which is Vampiric Tutor, essentially. You get to search your library for a card, put it on top of your library, or shuffle, and then put that card on top of your library. So you get to tutor for a card, draw it your next turn. It lets us find our Death Cloud, also can help us find a Haunting Echoes after a Death Cloud, so that's the main reason it's in the deck. Also, if it's just sitting out on the battlefield after a Death Cloud, we can plus it a few turns and then reanimate all the creatures that were destroyed by Death Cloud, not only from us, but for our opponent as well, so the ultimate does close out the game if we get in that situation. But the main reason it's there is to tutor for Death Cloud or Haunting Echoes. Then, just a bit of removal, 3 Doomblades, a single Dismember. Nothing exciting, just another way to kill something early in the game. Mana base wise, we have a Bojuka Bog, kind of a no-bo with Haunting Echoes, but we're playing black, we can afford another tap source, so I like it as a way just to kind of hedge our bets against Living End, against Dredge, any graveyard-based deck. It's kind of an interesting low opportunity cost trump card. To deck more Salvage, this is a cool one with Death Cloud. So it enters the battlefield taps for black mana, but it has Dredge too. So we can use deck more Salvage either by discarding it to Death Cloud from our hand or sacrificing it when it's on the battlefield. Then we can dredge it back, so we, on our next draw step, when we draw a card, we mill the top 2 cards of our library and get back to deck more Salvage instead of drawing a card. So it's a way we can get that land back from the battlefield and make sure we make our land drops when we need to, post Death Cloud. Then we have 4 Jungle Hollow, 4 Golgari Guildgates, just budget green-black duels. If you're not working on a budget or you have copies, Overgrown Tomb is very good, Woodland Cemetery is very good, but this is what we're working with to stay in under the budget. Then we have 5 Swamps and 8 Forests as our basics. So that's the main deck. Sideboard-wise, 4 Duresses, 3 Naturalize, 3 Reign of Tears, another Haunting Echoes, and Curse of Deathhold, 4 copies. Wanted to talk about that one in specific. So one of the things I was worried about with the Death Cloud deck is if our opponent can go wide with tokens, Eldrazi Scion tokens, Goblin tokens, Spirit tokens from Lingering Souls, our Death Cloud gets much less effective because our opponent can theoretically have enough creatures that they can just sack off the Scion tokens and keep behind a Drowner of Hope, for example, or a Reality Smasher. And that would really ruin our plans. We really need Death Cloud to take care of all of our opponent's stuff if it's going to work. So Curse of Deathhold makes sure that our opponent can't just have a bunch of X1s sitting around to sack to Death Cloud. Anyway, that's the deck. So pretty much ramp into Death Cloud. Hopefully, when we resolve our Death Cloud, have a Thragtusk, a Garruk, or a Liliana Vess on the battlefield, so we have something that can create value or start attacking as soon as we resolve the Death Cloud. And otherwise, we can use Haunting Echoes as a way to get rid of all our opponent's relevant stuff. So this is kind of a control-ish deck. We use our Secure Tribe Elders and Eternal Witnesses to stall out in the early game while we're developing our mana base. Thragtusk helps us stabilize, kill some stuff with Doomblade and Smallpox, and then Deathcloud is essentially the finisher. That combined with Haunting Echoes just closes out the game. One of the reasons I started thinking about Deathcloud was the fact that Eldrazi is so good, and if you can keep the Scion tokens in check, Deathcloud seems very good against Eldrazi. It kills all of their big stuff. It kills their powerful soul lands that tap for 2 mana. So I really like that aspect of it, and I think this deck has enough play against aggro, thanks to Thragtusk and the early game removal, that it's not just drawing dead against aggro, while it should be very good against Eldrazi and probably against control as well, because they need so much mana, and we can really put a pinch on their mana base with our Deathclouds. So anyway, I think it's pretty sweet. I had a lot of fun playing it. It was pretty competitive and pretty successful, as you'll see in the videos. So I would definitely check it out. Deathcloud is a really powerful and unique card. So if you like destroying all your opponent's stuff and kind of breaking the symmetry of these symmetrical cards, you should definitely give it a shot. It's pretty cheap and very competitive in Modern. So anyway, make sure to check out the website, mtggoldfish.com. It's where you'll find the article for this budget magic, all my other articles, decks, prices, metagame strategy, tons of awesome content by other people as well. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to click the subscribe button that's about to pop up on the bottom of your screen. It'll keep you up to date on all the latest and greatest in video content from mtggoldfish.com. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoy our Deathcloud budget magic in Modern videos, and I will talk to you soon.